Just a few weeks ago, I made this video. It was about navigating your first 100 days in recovery for an addiction. But I think I reached too far. You know, it's helpful to know what to do for that first 100 days, but the main question at hand is, how do I get 1 day clean from my addiction? In this video, I'm going to be telling you exactly what you need to be doing to get started in the recovery journey. I'm going to be speaking as a recovering compulsive gambler. What I say here is applicable to any addiction, but I speak as a recovering gambling addict because that's how I see myself. That's who I am. My name is Rob, and I'm a recovering compulsive gambler. I made my last bet on November the 12th of 2022, and since then I've made it my personal mission to help people to get into recovery for a gambling addiction faster than I did. Now today, I'm going to be sharing exactly what you need to be doing right off the bat, because that first day is rough. How do you make the decision to start living a happier life? What do I need to do? What are tangible things I can do? Not just feel-good bullshit things. What can I do to live a better life? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. But before I get into it, I have to say this, guys. I'm sorry. Please, smash that subscribe button if you want to leave the chaos of your addiction in the past. Or if you want to learn more about gambling addiction in general, because I talk about that a lot here, as you know if you're a returning viewer. And welcome back if you are. Now, let's get right into it. Why is it so difficult to get through that first day without your addiction? Well, it's because we're so used to getting that dopamine and that thrill and pleasure from our addiction that it just doesn't make sense to think about getting it from somewhere else. I mean, my very first thought when I decided I was going to stop gambling was, what do normal people even think about all day? I was gambling for at least 6 to 8 hours a day on average for the course of 6 years. What was I going to do in 1 day to magically fix everything? And that's the problem here. We think that we can fix it all in 1 day, but we have to take it 1 day at a time. Not everything is going to get fixed right away. If you were gambling for that long, if you were using for that long, it's not going to just magically get better when you decide you want it to get better. But if you start to get the ball rolling and start taking action like we're going to talk about here, then you're going to be in a better place after a couple more days, and then a better place a couple more days after that. And that's the goal here. We're trying to get incrementally better each and every day. Now, here are the 4 things that I focus on in recovering from my addiction and how I applied them in the very first day of my recovery. Number 1 is to find alternatives for that time that I had mentioned just before. If I was gambling for all that time and I was thinking about gambling for the rest of my time, what was I going to do with my thoughts and my body to get things done and to do something to not only distract myself, but to feel pleasure and feel productive in my day? And the very first day, I didn't know, right? I just sat there and I was just staring at the wall. And I was like, well, it's better than gambling, I guess, in terms of what it's going to do to me. But that's not sustainable. You can't just distract yourself. You can't just run away from the problem. What you need to be doing is starting to find something that you can channel your energy into. And you're probably not going to find it that first day. But what you can do is to think back. What did I used to do before I started using? Before I started gambling, before I started drinking, smoking, whatever it is. For me, one thing that I found a lot of joy in, always, was teaching. And for a while, I actually thought I was either going to be a lawyer or a teacher. And now I'm neither. Now I'm a YouTuber. But it's funny how these things work, that now my entire life is dedicated to teaching in a very different way than I could have ever imagined. Now, the first day, I just said, hey, I'm going to start making videos because that's going to be a better use of my time than it is playing roulette. And hey, it was. But I wasn't like I was great at it in the beginning, and I still think I have room to improve now. I mean, I'm not Mr. Beast, and I probably won't be, but I can aspire to be, and I can try my best. And that's a challenge that I can take on, where if I fail in that challenge, it's still not going to ruin my life. When you look at something like gambling, you can view it as a challenge, but if you lose that bet, you could be working for months just to pay that debt that you created with that gambling session. That's what happened to me 6 times over the course of 6 years. So in finding the alternative for your time, you have to be really patient with yourself, but start back before. That's what you have to do. We have to use our past experiences and past interests to inform our future experiences and interests. And that might not be the first thing that you try. It might not be the 10th. It might not be the 50th. But if you're trying new things every day, using your time to actively pursue a better life and a more meaningful life, you're going to end up in a better place, even if you don't find it right away. And that's the key. People are like, man, I can't stop gambling because I don't get joy out of anything else. Yeah, you're not supposed to. Your body is chemically addicted to the rush that you get from gambling. You're not supposed to feel good going and making paper mache. But if you keep doing that, if you keep staying away from gambling, you're eventually going to start to get a little bit more joy each and every day. But that first day, it's going to suck. You're going to have to expect that. A lot of people think that if they just stop, that first day they're going to feel this rush of feeling better. No, guys, it's going to suck that first day that you quit. But it's so worth it. And if you go into it knowing that it's not going to be easy right away, you're going to be in a better place than if you had your expectations set for a one-day recovery. Rome wasn't built in a day, and you're not going to recover from your addiction in a day. But if you don't start with that first day, you'll never get it done. The second thing that I focus on in my recovery journey is finding a way to distance myself from the resources that will tempt me. Now, for gambling, this is money. For a drug addiction, it may be the drug itself. For an alcohol use disorder, it may be that you can't go to the bars. It may be that you have to take a different route to work to avoid the liquor store. I don't have expertise in these addictions, but what I'll tell you is that from the gambling perspective, you have to separate yourself from the money, or it's always going to be there to tempt you. Now, how I did this in the beginning was that very first day that I quit, I took out my debit card, I got a pair of scissors, and I cut it up. I just destroyed. I went to town on that debit card. Then I switched the login for my bank account, and I gave it to my family. And all of a sudden, the things that were tempting me each and every day to try to go back and win more and get that thrill again, they were gone. I was isolated. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any access to any money. And that was a beautiful thing. Now I was mad. I was pissed. That first day, my ego was on fire. Oh, you're 23. You can't let your parents manage your finances. You're an adult. You have to go and get that back. You have to go and get the money back that you've lost. You have to win it all back. That was the conversation going on in my head. But that wasn't productive. That's what got me into the mess in the first place. So what I had to come to terms with was, hey, this first day is going to suck. I'm going to be mad. But if I don't have access to this money, I can't gamble. And I'm going to be mad about it. But then I'm going to be happy after a few more days because I haven't lost anything. There's no stress. There's no pressure. There's no anxiety. How awesome is that? Of course, it doesn't feel awesome when you want access to your money. You want that freedom. You want to have that rush still of gambling. But that first day, get rid of your access and you're not going to ruin yourself. And that's a win. You can start stacking little wins like that. And every couple of days, you're going to feel a little bit better. Remember, it's going to suck, but you're going to do it because you can. And it will get better. You have to trust that. Trust the process, as we say here in Philly. The third thing that I focus on is finding a way to distance myself from the gambling itself. So that's why I had some hesitancy earlier when I was talking about finding a way to separate yourself from money, because for other addictions, this is really what applies, right? We want to separate ourselves from the stimuli, from the substance, from the bet itself, get ourselves as far away as possible. And the way that you can do that with gambling is to do self-exclusions, which I talk about in this video linked here that I want you to check out after this video because it's a full guide on what self-exclusion is and how to do it for your casino or sportsbook. But, with other addictions, I'm not an expert. There has to be a way that you can separate yourself from it, but I'm not an expert, guys. I am a recovering gambling addict, and I think it's very difficult to separate yourself from something like alcohol when it's available at every store, or something like a drug, because you might be in the same neighborhood as the person you were getting those drugs from, and you're not able to move maybe. But this idea of slowly making it as difficult as possible to do it is what's important. Now with gambling, that means doing those self-exclusions and getting something like GamBan, GamStop, or GamBlock to block gambling websites on your phone or computer. That makes it more difficult. Not impossible, but more difficult. And that can be applied to any addiction. Taking a different route to work, finding a way to walk through a different part of the neighborhood where you might not be able to get the substances that you were after before. Making it more difficult to acquire, it gives you the space and time to think about whether or not doing it at all would be the best thing for you. We have to delay things as long as possible and give ourselves a chance. If it's right in front of us, it's going to be much harder to stay away from it than if it's around the corner. And it's much easier to stay away if it's a mile away than if it's around the corner. You see, just making it as difficult as possible is what's within your control. And you can do that on day one. Get those gambling ad blockers. Get those gambling app blockers. Do the self-exclusion. Take a different route. Whatever it might be for you, start to implement that first day. And you're still going to feel a really strong urge, a really strong craving to go and do it. That's natural because your body's still craving it. Your body is still used to the feeling that you get from it. But that's going to fade with time. Again, it's a game of patience. That first day is going to suck. But you are going to get through it because you can, and you are stronger than this addiction. The fourth thing, and what is so important to do on the first day you're trying to get clean, is to go to a support group meeting for whatever your addiction is. I go to a 12-step support group meeting for a gambling addiction, and it's made the biggest impact on my recovery. I went on February 8th of 2022. That was my original bet date, or my last time that I gambled. I had my relapse in November, but that's beside the point. When I went, it was the first night that I went to a support group meeting, was the first night I decided to start really getting clean and putting in that work. And it's because when you go to a meeting like that, you actually find out, hey, I'm not the only person struggling with this issue. That's really powerful stuff for someone who feels isolated or alone, which is one of the main consequences of having an addiction. You feel that way. You feel shut out from the rest of the world. So you've been hiding in your addiction to escape from something. When I went to that meeting and I told my story and I heard the story of other people, it really enforced the idea that I needed to get clean. That very first night, I was incredibly emotional. I had just lost a bunch of money and I was upset that I couldn't gamble anymore. But having the comfort of that room, having the accountability of that room, it really started to make an impact. And, that first night, it's not like I was cured of a gambling addiction, but having those conversations really set me on the right path. And it's all about setting yourself in the right direction in that first day. It is not going to be pleasurable. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be pretty. And that's why I don't get as many views as Mr. Beast does, because what I talk about here is not sexy. But if you implement these steps and you start to trust that the process will work itself out, it's going to turn from 1 day to 2 days, to a week, to a month, to a year, in the blink of an eye. I just did it myself. I'm coming up on my 1 year clean on November the 12th of 2023. It's going to be a good day. I'm going to be posting another video, so make sure that you're subscribed so that you see that video when I drop it. I went to Philadelphia and I spent 8 hours filming with my guy so that we could get the best B-roll, the best footage, and the best scenic spots for this video. I'm really excited. I've never worked harder than I'm going to be working on this one. So, hope that you're sticking around for this. If you liked what we had to say today, please drop a like on the video so that I know you enjoyed it. So, I know that we can keep living better lives, and it's all going to happen one day at a time.